Hi everyone, Adam from RethinkX here. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to zoom out a bit and return to a question I've briefly touched on before. Why does any of this matter? Why is it important to understand why our future is bright? Well, let's start with the obvious. If you think we're doomed in the future because of climate change, then it's easy to give up and say, to hell with it. Nothing matters now. If you don't think you have anything to look forward to, if you believe your future is truly hopeless, well then that naturally leads to cynicism, to fatalism, to nihilism. Why care about anything? Yourself, your friends and family, your community, your legacy, if we're all just doomed in a few short years anyway. And if that weren't bad enough, it would also be fair to argue that without a future, then all other human progress in the past has been for nothing too. And this is, I think, the really insidious and corrosive part. If you truly believe that we are doomed by climate change, then everything our civilization has ever achieved, every disease we've ever cured, every peace we've ever forged, every scientific discovery we've ever made, every step towards wisdom and enlightenment we've ever taken, fire, the wheel, language, music, writing, art, philosophy, all of it has been for nothing. Okay, so if you think humanity has made this terrible Faustian bargain, a deal with the devil, whose bill has finally come due, then what does that say about the idea of progress itself? That, I think, is the real risk. That's the real threat of pessimism, of doomsaying. It poisons the well of progress itself. Instead of seeing that innovation and improvement and the expansion of knowledge are the best, the only means of overcoming challenges, buying into the gloom and doom perverts the logic of progress. It blames it for our problems instead of correctly recognizing it as the only possible solution to them. Our capacity to solve problems is directly determined by our capacity to undertake transformations of the world around us. So, what exactly is it that determines this capacity? Well, many different answers to that question could be given at different levels of analysis. But if we were to distill them all into a single word, it would be prosperity. Prosperity is the term we use to describe the general condition in which we, as an individual or as a society, possess sufficient resources and know-how to transform our world or ourselves in necessary ways. And the greater the problem we face, the more prosperity we require to solve it. Okay, so now this profoundly counterintuitive narrative of degrowth comes along. It's not a new one. It makes the rounds every generation or two, and it has done for centuries. But here it is once again, saying the solution to our problems isn't progress and prosperity, it's regress and austerity. Now make no mistake what that actually means. It means impoverishment. It means we're living in sin, and our debauched lifestyle is immoral and unsustainable. We are the villains of the story, and the only path to salvation is penance. It's a very old narrative. Now, I don't think that very many of us are conscious of much of this. Instead, I suspect it's more common to experience a general cognitive dissonance around the whole business. In my experience, the general thinking goes something like this. Our common sense just screams at us that solving problems takes prosperity. And so if we really, truly cannot solve climate change with prosperity, as the conventional degrowth narrative goes, well then we don't stand a snowball's chance in hell of solving climate change without it. So, then, when we hear authorities of various stripes telling us that the solution is to just think optimistically and embrace austerity with a plucky attitude, that sets off our bullshit detector like a fire alarm. It has all the ring of desperation to it because it is desperate. We would never consider the nonsense of trading an environmental disaster for a social and economic one if a real solution were available. So what it feels like then is that the scientific community is afraid to tell us that the situation is hopeless. And if climate change is an unsolvable problem and a catastrophic, apocalyptic problem, well, there won't be any learning to live with it. We're all just toast. Now, I can personally confirm that many of my colleagues in the environmental and climate sciences do privately believe it's hopeless. I was at a small conference last year when an imminent climate scientist who was nearly in tears said to us, "I'm just glad I'm not young." So young people are not just imagining all of these things with the gloom and the doom. Their fears have been stoked by the scientific community. Because despite the boilerplate messaging about optimism, people can read between the lines. They can see through the bullshit when it comes to the austerity, not prosperity nonsense. Well, thankfully, all of this pessimism, it's dead wrong. Now, let me be clear. There's no conspiracy here. The scientific community has not deliberately misled the public and policymakers. The fault here is that virtually none of my fellow environmental scientists understand technology well enough to see that disruptions in energy, transportation, food, and labor are imminent, that they're unstoppable, and that they will give us both the tools and the prosperity we need to solve climate change and our other major environmental challenges. So, back to the question we started with. Why does any of this matter? Well, it's because misguided pessimism based on ignorance of the facts around technology and disruption, undermines our commitment to progress and prosperity. It breeds resentment, hopelessness, despair, and it gives oxygen to terrible ideas. That's why data-driven optimism is so important. And that's also why it's important to help us spread this message. So, as always, there are links to the book and RethinkX's other publications in the description. And don't forget to please subscribe and hit the thumbs up to boost us in the search and recommendation rankings. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And just remember, the future is brighter than you think. We'll see you all next time. Take care.